I have been supporting Beit T'Shuvah every year, probably since my first marriage back in 1984. And I didn't even know who they were, but my dad's friend Jonah Goldrich helped start it, and I always supported it. And what I learned in life, you never know if you're going to need an organization, which I work with Children's Hospital. They help me a lot. You don't know how you can participate with your friends, family, whatnot. And thank you, Doug Rosen. You are an angel and you are my go-to person. You helped me raise my three children. Whenever there was an issue, I went to you, and you've always been the between the parent and the child. And you were always like the cool guy who got along, made us all get along and help us. It's not easy. And thank you for speaking tonight.
Pleasure. My pleasure.
I just wanted
Janice,
to say, I'm sorry, Aaron. I just wanted to say, I saw Doug at the Jewish Federation, and
Mhm.
I was so impressed with his talk and the way he was came from his heart and shared that I thought it would be just such a pleasure for him to come to Janis
Thank
and
you.
speak for us.
Yeah.
I was so impressed.
No pressure now.
Okay, no pressure. And
I'm
I
great.
stand by what he says. I really took it in.
And this is going to be recorded and it will be on YouTube, and many, many, many people will be witnessing it. So it doesn't matter how many are on it tonight, Doug, you will be on it forever.
Yeah, I'm good.
well, Janice and Cynthia, thank you for that amazing introduction. I planned formal opening remarks that I usually do at the top of the each Janice Black Warner speaker series. But I don't know if I can beat what those just testaments from the heart that you just mentioned. So, what I might do is just share a little bit. And a special thank you to Janice Black Warner for making the event possible every month. We're so fortunate that we're able to have these really amazing conversations and bring industry experts and really give accessibility to our community to have resources that we might not have necessarily known about before. And so it's so great because it's like, and Cynthia, thank you for mentioning, our partnership with the Jewish Federation, Caring for Jews in Need, and Douglas. It's Doug, not Douglas. I said, which do you prefer, Douglas or Doug? And he says, that depends. Are you mad at me? So, and so I am not mad at you. I'm in gratitude to you, Doug. So thank you so much for joining us this evening and spending your time and sharing your experiences. So perhaps for some of the folks that might be tuning in on YouTube, not this evening, that aren't not as familiar with Doug and his amazing work, I'll just give a little brief background for those people that will be tuning in afterwards. So, again, tonight we're looking forward to another engaging discussion. Many thanks to Janice Black Warner for ongoing commitment to education, awareness, and support for mental health. And this evening, we have a representative from Beit T'Shuvah, Doug Rosen. Doug will discuss their Partners in Prevention program to help teens cope. They reach youth ages 12 to 18 through schools, both Jewish and secular, synagogues, camps, and in youth groups, and provide them with the space to confront issues, sometimes for the very first time. So, this partnership is headed by Doug, and Doug is a trained marriage and family therapist from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, has dedicated his life to substance abuse education. He regularly speaks to national audiences of students, parents, and educators about positive decision making. And we've already have a testament from two mothers about his ability on how to talk to kids. And about positive decision making, preempting destructive choices, peer pressure, self awareness, and teen resilience. Formerly a Hollywood entrepreneur who dealt with his own addiction, Doug is a captivating speaker, personal mentor, licensed therapist, and relatable teacher. His forward thinking curriculum is in demand by schools and synagogues throughout the nation. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Doug. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, so I don't even know where to start. I think I think what's important is to tell you guys about Beit T'Shuvah, and what what they're about. Beit T'Shuvah is a nonprofit rehab that will take anyone regardless of their ability to pay. Um, Most importantly, Beit T'Shuvah is a long-term residential treatment facility. And I often say getting people off drugs is easy business, right? I can lock anyone into a rehab for 30 days and I can get them off drugs. No problem. Keeping somebody off drugs is not what our system is really geared towards doing, right? Because that costs money, because it takes time. And the time required to get somebody to off drugs is different for everybody and to stay off drugs. So we are a 6 to 12 month program. And in in our treatment modality, we first get them off drugs the first 30 days. And then the next 6 to 12 months is built with giving them a life, which makes going back to drugs and alcohol that much more risky. And we give them a life that makes it so they want to make better choices. And that takes time. That takes a long time to happen. We've done a bunch of research at Beit T'Shuvah over the years, and a few of the interesting tidbits was that we found that the spiritual shift didn't happen for about 4 months, 4 to 5 months, right? Where somebody really settled into a new way of thinking. Well, if rehabs are 30 days, how on earth is somebody going to actually get to a place where they can make a true internal shift? It's nearly impossible. Um, we we have to create our system is broken where we don't create lives um, that help people stay sober long term and change their life. And I often say, and we have about 100 employees, 95% of them are alumni of the program. And so we are the worst business model in the world. We take people for free and then we pay them to stay. But that works. It keeps people sober. And so we're left fundraising, you know, millions of dollars a year to try to keep our doors open. And we have to constantly shift. We have galas, we have golf tournaments, we have all these things. But we really have to fundraise because who can afford to 6, 9, 12 months of treatment? It's not a realistic thing in our culture. Um, when I was first at Beit T'Shuvah 20 years ago, I was 27 years old. First of all, there's about 120 residents that live there. At 27 years old, I was one of the younger people there. And today that's middle of the pack. Our age demographic has dropped a lot. It's a lot of these younger people that are lost, that are smoking weed and drinking and popping pills. And what we teach in our prevention program, as well as what we're seeing in our residents, is capitalism has won. And when I say that, the drugs that young people are doing nowadays are not heroin, crack, and meth. It's alcohol, weed, and prescription medication. Because we've taken what they got the message. Those drugs are bad. Those drugs are bad, 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 bad. But alcohol, oh yeah, alcohol is legal, right? It's normal. And when you look at it, we now know through science and research that any amount of alcohol is really bad for you. We know that. We know cigarettes are bad for you, and we have for many, many decades now. Will either of those two things ever be illegal? Of course not, because of two reasons. One, we live in a society that we like to say we're free and we can make our own choices. But two, and most importantly, our capitalist economy would fail. Every restaurant would go out of business if alcohol was illegal. Every bar and club would go out of business. So we continue to push these things, and our young people see weed shops opening up. They see alcohol as a huge part of the culture and prescription medication because we live in our society where in America, we have a pill that fixes everything. If you have a runny nose, we have a pill for that. If you have a headache, you have a pill for that. If you have a fever, we have a pill for that. In other cultures or societies, if you have a headache, you know what they do? They drink water and they wait. In our society, we do that. Now, why is our society like that? A lot of it is to keep people in the workforce, to keep them not from having sick days, right? So if we keep it going, we keep the economy rolling. But we also create a system where, as people, right, and also as a parent, I have three boys. I don't want my kids to suffer. So I have a pill that can fix it. But at a young age, they learn very quickly that any discomfort you have, anything that might be wrong, we go for the quick fix. We go for the quick fix. We don't do the work to do it. And that's our culture. That's our society. And it creates an addictive culture. It creates a nation of people that want the quick fix, that want to feel good all the time. I say the biggest lie my parents ever told me. I have two loving parents. I say the biggest lie my parents ever told me at the dinner table was, I don't care what you be when you grow up. I just want you to be happy. Is anyone happy all the time? Is that the goal? But the message that we give our kids is that they're supposed to be happy all the time. We don't teach them the most important thing, that life is hard. It is hard. That used to be part of teaching of parents. But since the boomers generation and after World War II, we really have promoted like, oh, life's supposed to be fun. And what do they see on social media? They see everyone's highlight reel, and then they judge their life by everyone's highlight reel. And then they feel bad about themselves. And so, how can we retrain and what we have to do at Beit T'Shuvah is reparent these 18, 19, 20, even young adults that come in to let them know like the truth about life. And by the way, I don't discount real medication and the need for real medication out there. There's absolutely nothing wrong if you are under the doctor's care and taking a medication. But how many of young adults in their late teens and early 20s and even adults take prescription medication like Adderall to boost their performance? Tons. And why do they do that? Because if you ask a group of sixth graders anywhere in the country at any school, why do you want to get good grades so I can go to a good high school? Why do you want to go to a good high school? So I can go to a good college. Why do you want to go to a good college? So I can get a good job. Why do you want to get a good job? So I can make lots of money. Why do you want to make lots of money? So I can be happy. No matter where you go, that's the line. As if our grades in middle school have any impact on our happiness in life. Zero. Zero. But that's the message we send unintentionally, is that our performance in middle school and high school is going to have an impact on how we are and how we end up and our ability to buy stuff. And what I try to do in prevention as well as in treatment is I try to empower people, kids and parents and adults, to recognize what is happening. What is happening is they are bred to be hardworking consumers. They are bred to be people that are going to get good grades, go to a good school, care about making lots of money so they can buy stuff. And as a business person in a capitalist culture, if I develop an addictive product, you know what they call me? Rich. If I develop a legal addictive product, I get to win the game. What is the fastest growing addiction amongst young people nowadays? The fastest is gambling and that space. So what are they doing now? Because I have a seventh grader, right? And he's been harassing me. Can I get this app? Can I get this app? Can I get this app? It's called this, blah, 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 blah. It's not real money. They're going to give me 1,000,000 tokens. That's not real money. They're training my middle schooler to become a gambling addict. If I get him on when he's not making any money and it is real, and it's not real, when he does have money and it is real, the behavior will be there. I will have a customer for life. No different with social media apps for these kids, right? They all think it all happens in real time and that that everything's real. It's all an algorithm that's coded to be addictive for each and every one of us. And so we're training kids at a young age to become addicts, to self-medicate. We're not teaching them to tolerate discomfort, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with pressure at school, how to deal with everything that life comes, all the challenges. Life is really hard. But the messaging that we have in our society is that it's supposed to be fun. And what happens when it's not? What happens when it sets in that it's hard? Then the need to escape it all becomes very real. Um, for many of the young adults that come in, when I was at Beit T'Shuvah 20 years ago as a resident, there was one 50-year-old guy there who sat on a blanket at Venice Beach and was there for a marijuana only addiction. He drew his little art project and drove a VW bus. Typical stoner. Today we have countless people there for marijuana addiction. And we've created what we're doing is we're using data from marijuana that was used 50 years ago and natural to justify the use of recreational marijuana and what is bought in the store. Real marijuana contains 3 to 5% THC. You will, which is the part of the plant that gets you high. You will not find marijuana with less than 18% THC and has up to 95% THC. And we're justifying it as the same drug. And worse off for young kids in particular, the two places on planet Earth that you would never smoke weed in, and that you were safe from peer pressure, you were safe from temptation, were your room and at school. And where are the two places where kids smoke weed the most nowadays? In their room and at school. We've taken away these natural boundaries that existed. You had to do it at a party, you had to do it at a friend's house, you had to go on a walk. Now, you can do it all day long and nobody knows, both with the nicotine and the weed. And so these kids don't stand a chance because as technology, we've made it more potent and we've made it more accessible and easier to get away with. We would all get arrested if somebody smoked a cigarette or marijuana in the bathroom at Beverly High. We would go to jail. Like our parents would kill us. Like it was like death. It was like that was the option. Now, nobody finds out. So these kids can get away with it and develop this need to self-medicate at a very young age and do it constantly. And it's constant for them. And they can get no reprieve from it. So we've seen tons of kids coming in with mental illness and marijuana addiction. That's the scariest. For years, people would ask me, what's the most dangerous drug out there? When I started giving these speeches. And I would always say my response was always the same, right? It was always whatever drug you like the most is the most dangerous, right? So if you liked, meth, like, oh, look out for meth, right? If you like heroin, if you like carbs, like it could be anything. The most dangerous drug for our youth in today's world is marijuana, marijuana, marijuana. We've normalized it. We've strengthened it to the point where it's an unrecognizable drug. And we are just now learning all of the potential serious side effects that it can have on somebody's mental health, especially like, bipolar, schizophrenic, borderline personality disorder, all of these things that are coming in response from people developing at a young age a marijuana addiction. I tell kids all the time, you want to smoke pot? Like do it after 25, your risk goes way down, right? Way down according to the research out of UCLA. But up until then, it's a real issue. But it doesn't seem like that because as storefronts close down and commercial real estate goes bust, medical marijuana dispensaries keep popping up all over the place. So these subtle messages we're sending is that this is legal. And now most kids can get a marijuana prescription and be legal to use marijuana at 18 versus alcohol at 21. So we've really normalized it and we're hurting them. The process has completely hurt them. And then, of course, back to the other risky drug, which are prescription medications that you're not prescribed, right? And that's where we see a lot of the accidental fentanyl overdoses and stuff like that, is that we, the drug dealers are smart, the cartels are smart. We took away their biggest source of profit when we legalized marijuana in the state of California. We took away a substantial source of their profit. And they watched the trends and they saw that American youth weren't doing crack, meth, and heroin anymore, but they were willing to pop pills. So they got in the pill manufacturing business, but put a little bit of fentanyl in every pill, whether it be a Xanax, a Percocet, a Vicodin, and they make it off-site. And that's where all these accidental overdoses are happening. I think like a few semesters ago at USC in the Greek system, they had 5 overdoses in the Greek system. And these are kids that are not seeking out fentanyl. They're seeking out Xanax and Adderall because they work really hard and they perform really hard and they're type A personalities. And then and they take the Adderall. And then at the end of the day, they chill out with their Xanax. But it's laced. And so USC, actually, a young girl campaigned to give all of the frats Narcan. And overdose deaths went way down, way down. But it's our system that teaches our youth to take a pill for everything. You need to focus, I got a pill for that. You need to relax, I got a pill for that. I got a pill for everything out there. And we're creating a culture and society of people that don't know how to function without it and constantly are self-medicating. Versus, what's wrong with getting a B in high school? Is there anything wrong with getting a B? And I was stoked if I got a B in high school. Like, it meant my parents were off my ass. Like, I'm good. Right nowadays, you get a B in high school, your college choices get limited and change. And it freaks them out. A B, a B. And parents freak out about it and everything. Right? What happened to the C? C's average. We are not allowed to be average in any subject anymore for the youth. They are not allowed to be average. Everyone has to be exceptional. The funny thing is, I ask kids what do they want to be when they grow up, because that's what I was asked. And when in the 80s, when we sat around the room and they asked us, everyone in Beverly Hills elementary school said the same 2 professions. What do you want to be when you grow up? Be a doctor or a lawyer, right? There were some nerds and some geeks that realized they weren't going to be doctors or lawyers, and they were like in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, that were like, I'm going to be a banker, I'm going to be an investor, I'm going to be in finance. Where did they end up? And where did the doctors and lawyers end up? Right? And so I remind kids, we don't know what the next 30 years is going to hold. Don't chase the money. Chase something you love. Chase something that you enjoy. AI and everything, we don't know. But when you ask them, nobody in these groups that I teach raises their hand and say, I want to be a nonprofit Jewish educator. Like, nobody's saying that, right? And so the message you're sending is that money is the most important thing. But money doesn't bring purpose. And at Beit T'Shuvah, we say, we don't help people get off drugs. We help them find their purpose. And by finding their purpose, they happen to stay off drugs. Purpose is the only thing that can get you off drugs. And it keeps you off of it. Because without it, you'll go back because you don't have a life that's valuable, that's worth living. And so our messaging in our program, and so when the prevention program was started 20 years ago, they basically took all the messages that they were teaching in rehab and front loaded them in a curriculum to talk about them to kids in middle school and high school, right? We're talking to people about purpose, in their 20s and 30s and 40s. Let's talk to them about it. Are we talking about it when they're younger? When we talk, because we all had the DARE program. Like I start off every lecture to kids like, okay, like is it new information to you that drugs are dangerous? It's not. We have to get at the root as to why people are doing it. What is going on? Why are we so susceptible to it as a culture, as a society? And so I say and so a lot. I really think that there is a movement amongst young people, it seems like, to question the system a little bit, to question the drinking culture, to question the marijuana culture, to look at, oh, they're trying to take advantage of me. They're trying to they're trying to get me because there is a little bit of that out there where they're just trying to make them into hardworking consumers. And what do we consume, right? I remember I explained something as basic as them when we would drive. It was so frustrating when I was in middle school. The first time I would drive down Beverly Drive and we were on our way to school, and my dad needed to stop to get a cup of coffee from this place called Starbucks. I was ready to kill him. Who's gonna stop and get a cup of coffee every day for $3? Coffee's addictive. It's got the chemicals. And so it worked. And when you look at, we created a culture of coffee drinkers. If we, right, we know these things are addictive, right? These things, and when I when I talk to parents, I mention how the cell phones have hindered the development of our children. And the parents are like, absolutely. Absolutely. They're all like up in arms about it. And I'm like, you know why? Like, why? I go, because they've hindered your development as a parent. Because when your kid gets dropped off at Century City, you sit in your house in your bed and track them and watch every store they go into. And you're on call for when they want to be picked up, and you text them and you're like, how's it going at Century City? When I got dropped off at the mall at Century City, my parents said, be at the turnabout in 2 hours or you're dead. And I had to keep track of time and distance and responsibility and thought. I didn't get to like have my parents tracking my every movement, right? And when my whatever my curfew was, it was my curfew. There was no what I call negotiating with terrorists. Can I have 15 more minutes, please? Can I have 15 more minutes, please? No, 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 no. We had to be responsible. And in our society, and these kids that have been had by the boomer generation, when you look at the pyramid and the hierarchy in lots of families, where do the kids sit? Where do the offspring sit? Are they at the bottom of the pyramid, or are they at the top being fed and being coddled and taken care of? The parent's whole existence is to take care of the kid. I can tell you, if my parents had an extra $200, it was not spent on a private coach for me to learn how to play basketball better so I could go to the NBA. I can promise you it was spent on them. But in our system now, the kids have gone to the top of the pyramid, and we wonder why these kids look at me, where they will look at therapy and say to me, I didn't ask to be born. You have to pay for me at 25 years old. I didn't ask to be born. Sorry.
Can I ask you something quickly?
No. Sorry. But the kids are at the top of the pyramid and the apex, and the parents are fueling this. Their whole lives have become about their kids. What does that teach the kid? That you're there to serve them. Kids used to be had up until recently. Kids used to be had as a way to help out around the house, as a way to help out around the farm, not to not to worship the ground they walk on. And as a parent, you have to remember your primary goal is to teach your kids how to fly without you. Whether they come back for Sunday night dinner or not is a plus. Your role and your responsibility is to teach your kids how to fly, whatever that may mean. And for all of us in LA, I will tell you this, and I tell my kids this all the time, and I tell parents this, and I tell kids that I work with this. If you've made it in LA, you are a lottery winner. Not everyone can make it here, and that's okay. Even if you're from here, it doesn't mean that you're going to make it here. It is incredibly lucky It's hard work and luck. It's not made for everybody. There are great lives that can be had in Westlake, in Ventura, right? Where the pace of life is slower, where a simple apartment is not $3,000. There are other places where you can live in the country. Kids are afraid to leave. My kids assume that they're going to be able to have a house on the west side of LA and send their kids to private school. I remind them you are not. We got incredibly lucky. This was luck by all. It was. I work hard. I work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. But even in that, it's luck. And they think it's just their God-given birthright. But what happens when it's not? Right? Are we teaching our kids do not move? Kids are less likely to move states away from their parents for a better high-paying job. That's never happened in the history of the world. Ever. Kids used to move to where the work people used to go to where the work was. Now kids are staying to where the parents are. That's a dangerous thing because it makes the parents responsible for the kids for much longer, forever. I can't tell you how many parents, you know, I talk to and they're like, I don't know what to do with myself. My kids club basketball. My kids aged out of club basketball. What am I going to do now that I have my weekends back? Huh? Huh? You got your weekends back. They're yours. But the identity of the Western parent is so wrapped up into everything their kid does. We have to change the system. So we're not creating a society of narcissists. It's a society of kids that feel like the world owes them something and that it's just guaranteed to happen. It's not. And what happens when it doesn't? How do I self-medicate? And the beauty is when you empower when you speak this truth to families and parents, it empowers the parents to get their life back. To get their life back. Doesn't mean we don't love our kids, doesn't mean we don't take care of our kids. But my job is not to take care of my kid his whole life. My job is to teach him how to fly without me in whatever that means. And the struggle is real. So many young people today, love being under their parents', payroll all the time and just assume that that's where they belong and that that's okay. And it's not. The kids have to step into their role so they can feel responsible because addiction, in a lot of ways, is a disease of not wanting to grow up. My parents bailed me out of every situation growing up. If I did poorly on a test, they would call the school. If I got a parking ticket, they would pay it off. Countless things over and over again. I got arrested at 27. I called them. I said, come bail me out. They said, you're on your own. That was the last day I ever did drugs. When I knew that there was no one left to rescue me, that I had to be responsible for myself. We can teach kids that at any age. At any age. So with that, I will open it up to questions, thoughts. You can hate me and hate everything I said. It's very normal. Some people do. They're the ones I usually take home at night in my head. But that's the reality. So thank you.
Doug, thank you so much. Garrett, I see your hand.
Douglas, that was a really inspiring speech with a lot of wisdom in it. I really appreciate it. My name is Garrett, and I do outreach for NAMI West LA as well as doing support groups. And my question is, how do you help the young people connect to their purpose? If you can talk a little bit about the different resources or opportunities that are available to help the addict connect to their purpose, I'd love to hear about that.
Well, at Beit T'Shuvah, we have a career counseling center. So we spend a lot of time exploring what somebody's strengths and weaknesses may be. And we have somebody that holds their hand through the process of applying for a job, of interviewing, of doing all this stuff. But it's not, what's great is by the time they've gotten to that place in the process, um, they're so part of the community. They're not chasing money, most of them. They're just chasing a job. They're chasing something basic, something simple. And when you make it simple, right, that's achievable. But we have to simplify the goal. The goal can't be to be an executive at a company right away, right? The goal has to be support yourself. And the greatest feeling that every human gets is when you realize that you're capable of supporting yourself and you don't need mommy and daddy's money. I can feed myself and I can house myself. That's a great feeling. And so we encourage that with all that that comes with, right? But helping them find that, you know, that greater sense. And by the way, purpose does not have to be job. I want to stress that. It does not have to be a job, right? I have a guy that I work with that's an actor. He's an actor. He maybe books two bit parts on television shows a year. He drives a limo during the by day, but he's at his purpose, he's an actor. He just doesn't make enough, and he'll always be an actor. I always refer to him as an actor first and foremost, because that's what he is. Whether he's making a lot of money acting or not, doesn't matter. That's his purpose. But he needs to make a living so he can have a roof over his head and food. So we can also separate what it is purpose. Purpose doesn't have to be what you make money at either, but you have to support yourself. So both can be true. How many musicians do I know that have never made a dime as musicians, but they view themselves as a musician first and foremost? Does that make sense? But I think for a lot of them, holding their hand through the application process is also really important. They need a little bit more hand holding. Other questions? Is there a moderator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheryl, my name is Cheryl, and you just described me as a parent. Thank you so much, Doug, for that. I was that parent. My daughter has co-occurring issues. She got into drugs because she couldn't find balance on the ground. So I wish there'd been you for me. I wish, and I'm curious as to how do you work with the families to get them to shift
Good question.
in the way that they need to shift in order to ensure that they stop, saving and serving and all of what you just described.
By the way, let me stress very, very first and foremost. I say all this and it's all true. It's very hard to practice. As a parent of three young
Course.
boys, I am as guilty as the next person,
I get it. I
right?
get it. I get it. Sure.
Um, but listen, what I am is I'm blunt and direct. I am blunt and direct. I don't really care who you are, where you come from. Um, I don't sugarcoat stuff. I say it the way it is. And I think, 9 out of 10 people will respect that. And I think
Yeah.
we need more of that in the therapeutic community and less kind of like, well, that must be really hard. Well, I'll tell a parent, a very successful, high net worth parent, you want to fuck up your kid? Fuck up your kid. Like, that's on you. I'm telling you what I'm seeing and what my experience has been. And for the most part, they appreciate how direct you can be if you really care. If you're coming, what I found is if you're coming from a true, authentic place where you really do care, people are responsive and receptive, right? They just are. But it's important that we tell them what we see and the way we see it because and I also acknowledge that like I don't have a like, there's no science that says that this way is perfect or this way is perfect, right? It's trial and error. And what worked for one kid may not work for another. And that's the truth too. It's really tricky. It's not a exact science.
Do you hold support groups separately though for the families?
We have a family program there, yes. We have
Okay.
a family program at Beit T'Shuvah. We used to call it Mothers Without Borders, but we've subsequently changed its name to just the Family Support Group. Because one of the things many years ago, about 10 years ago, somebody asked me what was the most common denominator of young person you saw at Beit T'Shuvah. And when I really went around the house and saw, it was really, they really had over-involved parents. They really did have over-involved. Not, and what happened was in the 70s and 80s, the kids that were into drugs and alcohol were the kids whose parents were uninvolved. So the pendulum shifted
Yeah.
all the way over here. It was like get involved, go to every PTA meeting, right? There's a middle ground where, and this analogy is used a lot in therapy and in health, should cabin air pressure fail, who do you put the mask on first? Right? But west side of LA parents are putting it on all their kids before they put it on themselves, and that's creating this whole system where nobody's breathing.
Absolutely. I want to thank you. I know several parents and their kids that have come through your program. I know a
Great.
couple of those kids that still work with you,
Great.
and they're still actively involved with Beit T'Shuvah, and it is a remarkable, remarkable thing you've done. I want to,
I didn't do it. I just worked there.
well, I want to honor that. I just want to honor what you're doing and uh how we need to support you in any way that we can. And I'm very, very grateful that we're meeting together tonight. This is
Oh,
something that is it's more important than anything for these kids.
yeah.
And we really, really have to focus our energies. And thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank
Thank
you
you.
from the bottom of my heart.
We just need more communities. I mean, what Beit T'Shuvah is, it's just a community.
Yeah,
Community of misfits where nobody judges anyone.
yeah. So
And
are we. So is
right,
Tommy.
Nami's the same.
right.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And what community, we don't have enough communities. And in particular spiritual communities, judgment free. I mean, religious attendance is way down in this country, right? For right or wrong, right? In the 50s, everyone in America on the Sunday was at a church except for the Jews, right? Everyone. That's not so much anymore, right? We all knew what was going on. We knew our neighbors. We had that sense of connection. We don't have that. And I think that's the most healing part of Beit T'Shuvah. It's not like we have some phenomenal group that nobody's ever heard of at Betty Ford or at a different rehab, right? You can only do so much. But what we have is a big community, and that heals.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for your question and remarks, and Doug for your response. Um, I'll get to the other three people with their hands, but I just want to acknowledge Sarah Haufrecht in the chat. She said, "Thank you, Doug. What you've said is so true. Purpose is everything. I've worked with your affiliated job training and design firm, Creative Matters, many times, and every person on that team who has been through your program has been so amazing. Thank you for all that you do."
Thank you.
So thank you, Sarah, for that comment. And we'll go Debbie, Elizabeth, and Cynthia. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Douglas, so much for your being here tonight. A couple things you said about your program. I just wanted clarification. You said that um, people don't have the ability to always pay, and so I'm curious, do you take insurance? Do you start with insurance, and then if you max that out, you let them stay? And I'm asking this as I provide resources for people and places to go. I'd love to know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, we take Medi-Cal. We're currently looking to be in network with more big insurance companies. For the right case, we do take people that don't have anything. And yes, when insurance runs out, which it does very quickly, once you're in, you're in. So we don't kick people out because their insurance runs out, which inevitably insurance lasts 30, 60 days max. Um, but yes, I mean, you have to meet a lot of our criteria. We're not a dual diagnosis facility. We are a primary substance use treatment center. We do have a gambling program and a gambling track, but in order to meet the criteria to be in the gambling program, because of accreditation laws, you actually have to have a co-occurring substance use disorder right now. So you can't just be a good old-fashioned gambler. You actually have to be a gambler that smokes pot or drinks a beer once in a while. But yes, we take people all the time that don't have the resources to pay. And
Thank you for that.
some of them will help get them on Medi-Cal, because Medi-Cal, when I say we take Medi-Cal, Medi-Cal covers 3 months, but nobody
Right.
stays for less than 6 months. So we're only getting paid for 3 months of the 6 months max, and most people stay longer.
So the way you shape your program is 6 months is the minimum that you feel that they should go through.
Correct.
And then just to clarify as well, another thing you said is you're not a dual diagnosis treatment center. And I did want you to kind of speak to that in terms of loved ones that do have a mental health diagnosis and substance use, misuse, whatever you want to call it. Do you think it's a safe approach to just say, mom, dad, pull out, just let's see where the cards fall? Or, because that's a concern for a lot of families that I work with. And I just would like you to speak to that
It's
from your
case
experience.
it's case contingent. It's really case contingent, diagnosis contingent. There's no formula that I've seen fit all involved. But I think that it really depends on the person and the diagnosis, right? And even then, the diagnosis doesn't mean as much to me as it does the actual person and what they're capable of and what they're not capable of. Um,
Mhm.
I, the hard part as a parent, as a clinician is if somebody's like, I'll use this example. If somebody's capable of true self-harm, that makes putting up a boundary really tough because but that means that they have you, right? They also own you for the rest of your life because they're capable and are willing to go to that place. You're trapped, you're handcuffed. And I'm never one to tell parents, listen, if I see that somebody's capable of real self-harm, that's the parent's call. But they have to understand that that whether they're 20 and threatening self-harm and will follow through, or 40 and they'll follow through, it's not going to change unless they actually are willing to let their kid experience the consequences of their actions. And that's a scary position to be in. It's really terrifying. So it's really case by case contingent. And it has a lot to do with as a parent. I'm not the one that's going to have to live with it for the rest of my life if I put up the boundary. The parent is. So I will defer to them. I'll let them know what I see, but I'll say, this is your call to make. Because I can't guarantee, listen, plenty of kids are like, I'm going to kill myself if you do anything to me. And I know it's not real, right? I just know it's not real. But there are some people where it is real, and if I feel that way, I have to defer to the parents on it because I can't be the one that they resent later in life for having them do it. But I do know on a side note, a guy I work with, um, he's 44 years old. He's from the Pacific Northwest. And his parents basically, he's had odd jobs his whole life and he drinks too much and smokes too much weed and pops too many pills. And his parents basically have supported him his whole life, right? Apartment, this, that, and the other. And the only dynamic they had was him asking them for stuff. When am I going to get out of here? When am I going to get this? The parents were working with a therapist and they put up a boundary. At 44 years old, they put up a boundary. And you know what he did the second they put up a boundary and he's in a sober living down here? He went to the kitchen and got a knife and cut himself and ended up in the emergency room on a 5150 hold for 2 weeks. He survived, thank God. But he was like, it was the only move he had when the parents put up a boundary. Now he's 3 months later, he's got a job.
Good.
He's not harassing them to, what can I get out of you? Like it was a scary thing for the parents to put up a boundary, but he had to go through that process in order to get to the other side. And at 44, that boundary is much more volatile than it is at 13 or 14.
Thank you so much for all of those insights, Doug. Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug, so much for the work you do and for spending this evening with us. I was wondering, in your clinical work, how do you see generational trauma and early traumatic childhood experiences correlating with addiction?
It depends on the trauma, obviously. Um, there's true PTSD and there's big T's and there's little T's. I think we all go through little T's throughout our life. Obviously seems to be a real high correlation between real big trauma and substance use later in life, especially as young children. So we definitely see a correlation there. Um, but we also see a correlation between little T trauma too, right? Like kids whose parents got divorced, right? To them, that's a very traumatic experience, but that's life too, right? And so, um, the bigger the trauma, the more impact it has, obviously, in the long-term prognosis of relapse and stuff like that as well. But we tend to we tend to heal that through, treatment modalities as well as through the community, right? That we have these trauma support groups and it's part of the ongoing process. And on some level, we differentiate between, we help people differentiate between what's trauma and what's life trauma because we all experience life trauma. We just do, right? Like things happen that are challenging and difficult, and we have to learn to cope with those life challenges as well. But I do like when, especially with young people, because young people in particular will throw around the word trauma very loosely, um, and as a justification and rationalization for a behavior. And we have to be very careful that we don't give them that fuel that keeps them going, that justifies this, and this. We can validate while at the same point talking about traumas that everyone experiences versus these big, heavy traumas that, are really, really life impacting. I mean, I remember when I went through grad school, I think the stats were 1 in 4 girls was sexually abused and 1 in 6 boys. I don't know if that's changed since. That's real trauma. And that's a large percentage of the population that have had to cope with that on some level as well in order to function in the world. And, I mean, listen, the first day I ever smoked pot was the day after my parents told me they were getting divorced. I had no antibodies for that trauma, I mean. I just had no antibodies. So dealing with some of that stuff is important. And listen, it plays out in my everyday life, right? Anytime my wife and I get into a fight, my initial reaction is that childhood self place of, oh my gosh, are we gonna get a divorce? But I can't react and live from that place all the time either. So we try to really help people move through it and really differentiate between the big T and the little T.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cynthia, you had your hand up.
Yes. Josh, Doug, I want to talk to you about mental health because we have so many of our young adults smoking marijuana. And if you have a mental health condition, it just exasperates it. They get in delusions, they get psychotic. The parents don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
But that marijuana is the spiritual thing of their life, and they don't want to stop it.
Yep.
It's so hard. And I really appreciate it because you're so honest, you're so upfront. Front. Okay, so the mental part of that, and also at one time you said that you do have somebody coming in from UCLA, and you do have patients with mental health as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
they have
can
to
you,
have primary substance use disorder.
oh, the primary substance is the disorder, the
Right.
secondary is the mental health. So you
Right.
do have that. So that's what I really
Yes,
wanted
but
you
we're
to talk
not we're
about.
not gonna be probably take somebody with like schizophrenia
Right.
unless they're very stable. Very, very stable. We're too big of a facility. We don't have enough eyes on them to watch them.
And do you give them medication or do they have to take their own medication?
No, we have a med line that people
That's
want.
wonderful. Well, this is all really good news. This is very helpful because I do have so many parents calling, really. But how do you get that child to that point to say, okay, I've had enough? That's the thing.
It's so
I've
hard.
had enough and I don't want to do this anymore. And I want to listen to you and let's go get some help.
It takes time. I'm not gonna lie. It takes I have a guy that's got 12, he's got like 14 months off of weed right now.
Right.
It took us 5 years to get there.
Oh,
5 years. And like the last 3 years, every time we talked, every session was, I want to get off weed. I need to quit smoking weed. Like it was like it's a process. I do think that as I've worked with kids in high school and college, as they leave LA, weed becomes less important. So there is something to be said about weed being so a part of the west side of Los Angeles culture that it's not as I, they'll tell me they go to Boston or something like that and they're like, yeah, I smoke, but it's not like it was in LA where like the activity of choice is smoking weed. Nothing happens for you until you smoke weed. It's not like that everywhere else. Weed is not the primary kind of activity of choice.
Um, may I ask you, are you advocating at all for the marijuana or against it and letting people know how this marijuana is so dangerous for our children and their brains are not developed enough? I mean, the
Yeah,
kids are doing this so young now. It's frightening.
that's what I teach in my prevention program. But I'm not advocate. I'm not a politician. That's beyond my pay grade.
Okay. And okay. And
And once the
the
toothpaste is out
gambling.
of the tube, you can't put it back in.
I know grandparents that let their kids come over and use their cell phones and play games constantly, and they're gambling. These are 8 and 9 years old.
Hmm.
Okay. And they're stealing the parents' credit card to buy more of this.
Yeah.
So thank you. You've been really an eye opener tonight. Thank
Thank
you.
you for
I
having me.
really appreciate it. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's wonderful. NAMI has no judgments. We accept everyone. And I just want you to know you could have a community with us at any time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sweet.
Hi. Thank you so much. I've been in your community as an enabler. My children's father was in 19 rehabs. The first one was Beit T'Shuvah. Rabbi Mark is a hero. He actually drove out to him when the word bottomed out, which I want you to give me a definition of bottoming out, and then I have something else to say after.
I mean, I don't have a bottoming out definition. It's different for everyone. Me bottoming out was just being in jail for 2 days and freaking out that like I just didn't want to be, I could never go back, right? And some people can go back. So it's just different, what is different for everyone when they hit rock bottom. The scary part is the people that are the most terrifying to me are the ones that aren't afraid of being homeless because there is no bottom. There's no bottom for them. you have no leverage if they're willing to go to the streets. And there's a handful, like very rarely, 3 or 4 times in my 20 years of doing this, have I met people that were like, there was no boundary I could put up that was going to get them to move. So those are the hardest bottoms, is when there is no bottom.
And it's funny, you said something about there's a magic pill for everyone thinks. And then you said you can have a cup of water in other countries and that solves if you're thirsty or this or whatnot. The other day I met this woman and she was complaining about her 8-year-old child. And I got deeper into it and she said he's prescribed Prozac and Vyvanse. I was blown away because I have never heard of a child at that age. For me, I think the worst drug is Vyvanse. It's like Adderall on crack. It's horrible. And Prozac. So if they start at 8 years old, how how are they going to be when they're 28 years old if they make it? I mean, it's do you see children at that? I thought it was at 15 they start antidepressants. Are they starting them at this age now? 8?
Sometimes it depends on the case, right? It depends if the kid is not. It's hard because if your child is unable to function in the current system, which is to sit through a class for 8 hours all day, you're not left with many options. And so, it sometimes can be very hard for for parents to make that decision because a lot of them don't want to put their kids on medication, but sometimes it's the best answer because at least they can get through their day. Um, but yes, their kids are going on medication at younger and younger ages, um, to try to help them cope.
But I see parents who were told they were suggested in school to put them on meds and they chose not to. And their children are 32 years old and they're functioning very well. So I'm saying it's not for
That happens
everyone.
too. That happens too.
Yeah.
Both,
And
both can be true.
I was at a summit for teens and college students at UCLA. Francis Semmel put on Sunday from 9 to 5. I was there. And it was unbelievable about moral compass and about that they learned a lot. You would be a great speaker with UCLA. But so I was leaving and I lost where I parked my car at UCLA and I ended up in all the sports areas and I walked into this sports center and they told me where I was supposed to go. And then I was leaving and I noticed a big pile of fentanyl tests for free.
Mhm.
And I thought, what is a fentanyl test? Well, maybe you can tell me. I've never seen one.
It's a test that tests cocaine and prescription medication to see if it's laced with fentanyl. So college kids are able to test their drugs that they're going to do.
And this is at the athletic department at the highest level for UCLA. And there was like a big pile of them for free. I thought that was generous. But it made me think about um, what's his name? Jelly Roll, or what's the singer? He was speaking um, in front of in Washington, all about marijuana and weed, and he was a drug dealer. And it was quite interesting that he was saying how bad it is. And it is bad right now, the fentanyl, what's going on. But as you said, we're not political. We're not the government. We can't control it. But you are helping us today. Thank you. And I'm hoping maybe you have tips for us for the enablers, for the families who try to protect our family members, but they keep repeating this and we can no longer fix them. Because when they leave the treatment center, whether they're there 6 months, 9 months, the longest they're there, then they go home to their four walls and they're alone. And within a month, I noticed they tend to go back unless they have a community.
Right. It's the community part. And that's what AA provides you, right? That's what Alcoholics Anonymous is supposed to be. It's a community where of judgment free where people can go and like, okay, where were you? We lost you, et cetera, et cetera. So we hope that, that's why treatment centers try to push people to AA, hoping that AA will carry them through to the finish line.
And it's a lifetime. This is not, as you said, you think about when there's things that go in your family and you think about, oh my God, my childhood, what I went to. But
Right.
you can't go back there and you have to be an adult and you're an example for
You
your
have,
children.
you have to grow up or you don't. But what does it look like if you don't?
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just had to say one thing that you said earlier about kids these days saying, I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask to be born. You have to take care of me. I have heard those words and I felt guilty, like, oh, I know, I know. And then it dawned on me, and I told this individual, you know what? You're not unique. You know why? Because there's not a single person on this earth that asked to be born. So drop it. So
Right.
that was my revelation to that complaint.
Right.
You know, we're all here. How do we get here? No, I
Right.
didn't choose. So thank you for that comment.
It's one of the things that I think works or would help our young kids in particular is the way Israel does it is really good. There's a lot wrong with Israel, not talking politically. But I'd be as a teenage when I was just a kid therapist before I got into adults, I'd be out of business in Israel. Because you know what 16-year-old parents say about, when their kids misbehaving at 16 in Israel? The parents were like, "Don't worry. The army will fix them right up." Right? They all go into service from 18 to 21 and they learn to make their bed. They learn to be responsible. They learn to be part of a team. They learn all the skills that they don't leave their towels on the floor all of a sudden when they're part of the army, and having that sense of community and purpose and you know
Mhm.
really does a wonder for those kids in a lot of ways because there's a connection, there's a greater purpose. It's to the country, not a self-driven purpose. It's for the survival of the state, and they learn all the skills that parents struggle teaching their kids with. They don't leave until they can make their bed. They don't leave until they can, wash their dishes or clean a toilet. All the things that no parent on this side of town is asking their kids to do.
It's that's such an interesting observation, Doug. Thank you for sharing that because I noticed too, like in other countries or cultures, sometimes they'll have like a gap year where
Mhm.
people really take that time, whether or not be military service, because not everyone may or may not be cut out to be in the
Right,
military or have that regimen. And Israel is a much smaller country than, let's say, for the United States.
right,
But even like our former president, John F. Kennedy, it says, ask not what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And he started AmeriCorps. So it was a very much of that
right.
service relation or the Peace Corps, having that kind of thought of giving back or be of service to others. And it really does give you even like a gap year or whatever to really understand. And I know that's kind of taken a different trajectory too. But if you'd had that gap year to be of service, it's a great
Mhm.
and I'm wondering, like in your prevention program, do you have community service hours or things like that to help get children or young
We
adults to
don't.
find that purpose?
We don't have that community service. It just becomes too difficult to manage a lot of times. But them finding, yeah, to be honest, I'll tell you how I really feel because I never hold back. Um,
Tell us
community
how,
I love
tell
it.
us how
I
you
love
really
it.
feel, Doug. Tell us how you really feel.
The school system and the college admission process has completely bastardized the concept of community service for the next generation. Community service is not something that is done altruistically anymore for many, many children. It has become a box you check for your college application or for hours for school. What happened was kids in the 90s and early 2000s, there were some kids that really actually cared about volunteering and wanted to help a community. They put it on their application and schools really liked it. It looked really good. So everyone started following suit, and now there isn't a kid that applies to college that doesn't have community service? But how many of them are doing it just for the box to check? And we're really going to lose it where community service has become a selfish action for this generation, not a selfless action. And so we want volunteers that actually want to do that, that want to do it because they actually care about the organization. The organization helped them. It did something for them. It moved them, not because their school says they need 40 hours of community service and to go stand and walk around and pretend to file papers. That's my personal opinion, because I see all these kids calling me, requesting me for community service. None of them care about addiction. None of them care about people off the street. They just like, I have hours I need to do for my school. Like I want you guys, I actually know a girl that volunteered on me, and she did it because her brother had mental health challenges and she wanted to give back. And NAMI helped her brother. That's the right reason to do it, not because there's something in it for me. That's the whole point of community service, is a selfless action.
But also, it could be a punishment. When my daughter was in ninth grade, I drove her 3 times a week to the top of Coldwater to the tree people. She volunteered. And it was a big pain for me to go up and down that hill. Then I found out her dad didn't tell me. He kept it a secret. He said she got caught smoking cigarettes in Westwood at 14, and she had to go to court because it was against the law to smoke cigarettes at 14. So for that year, I was so happy my daughter's doing community service at the tree people. And I thought, how wonderful. And she's, addressing envelopes and helping with their fundraisers. But the biggest pain was me, because it made me drive her 3 times a week. And I didn't find out for like 2 years later that it was a punishment, and her dad kept it from me. So don't keep secrets, parents. You should, because you parent together, not separately. But wow. This is
That's just what I think. I'm going to have my kid, if he doesn't find anything, write his college essay on why he's not doing community service, because he wants to wait and find something that's meaningful to him. And I think that will be so unique, they'll let him in anywhere. That's my take on it.
We can always help. Give me a call. I can help find his interest. I guarantee you. Call Janis. You helped me for years. I'm going to help you. And that's what it is. It's my dad always said, he's 92. God bless him. You give and it comes back. And you have never not taken a phone call from me. Doug Rosen, you helped me raise my 3 children. You are fantastic. And he is known in the community to be the kind of the middle person between the parent and the child. And I know so many families that have used him from Calabasas. You know these families. I'm not going to mention them, but from Beverly Hills, Calabasas, Brentwood, everywhere, the Palisades, everywhere, Doug Rosen is a hero, because he knows how to talk to the child and the parent and help you function and get along. Also, you helped me years ago. I didn't know my son had schizophrenia. And when he was 17, he was 16. Before he was 16, his dad passed away. And I called you because he was very angry and upset. And you mentioned Pacific Quest. It's a wilderness camp he went to in Hilo. He went to, and only you, Doug Rosen, would come up with an organic farm in the middle of Hawaii. And he went there. It was a 3-week program. It took my son 7 weeks because he wouldn't move out of his tent. And they grew their own food. So you are fantastic. And every parent should know. And I applaud you. And it's not just Beit T'Shuvah. You also help independently outside, consulting with families. And I think, Cynthia, you need to use Doug Rosen as a tool, because I could not have raised my 3 children without this wonderful human being.
I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that, Janis. I didn't know that, Doug, that you do that. I will definitely put you on my resource list.
Thank you.
Is it a different number that you want me to have them reach out to?
People just call my cell all day long.
I call you when I call him all the time.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a gift. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Cynthia, for capturing your heart with Doug. And I'm just blessed that you came on and just out of the respect for each other. And I have recommended so many families to you because I know they get results and he doesn't put candy over this or cushion it. He tells the truth. And I love that about you. And I think of all tonight, many families are going to be helped by you, Doug. Thank you. Many more families. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Doug, is there a way that you could put your cell phone number in the
I
chat?
did, I did.
You did. Thank you
Oh.
very much. Thank
And
you.
I actually with a buddy of mine who's a parent at my kid's school, we're starting this it's primarily for boys, this therapy collective where we have like a team of like literally 20 therapists that are all specialized in different things like trauma, sexual identification, EMDR, mindfulness, body, somatic, CBT, DBT, where everyone kind of has a skill set. And like, it's pretty cool. Like, it's just pretty special how like you can kind of really work in a team. It's a collective of therapists. So they might see the ADD coach once a month, the DBT person once a month, and the mindfulness person every 2 weeks, right? And it's just like they get whatever they need. So it's not just one modality that the person is focused on. It's multiple modalities and different team members in the kitchen, and they all communicate and stuff like that. It's a different approach to therapy. It still ends up could be weekly or bi-weekly therapy, but it doesn't mean when you're with the same person, you actually get breath work one week and you try to learn how to, the power of the breath. It's just there's an experiential guy that will take them out into the woods and go hiking. So it's really a different kind of system.
This sounds amazing. It sounds like Boy Scout mental health for boys. Like
It's kind of like a crash course for that. It's
this
exactly.
is amazing. Well, we might, circle back and get more information
Yeah, I can
specifically.
have if you want, like the guy
Yeah.
that runs it, he's a licensed therapist too, sober, and he's 40s, got two
Mhm.
kids. And he and his husband like really met in sobriety and really wanted to help people. So it's kind of like he put this collective together. So it's really
Amazing.
about just having like 20 really good therapists. So you get a call, and as opposed to getting a call and saying like, okay, I'll see you, it's really going through an intake process and placing them with the right order of people. So it's not just one modality.
Mhm.
It's multiple modalities, multiple personalities that can help. I have a 45-year-old guy that I work with that I see every other week. The body person, the mindfulness body somatic person sees once a week, and the ADD coach sees once a month. And it's been the right formula for him.
And this doesn't take any insurance. It's just cash
That's not
only.
going to be insurance based at
Right.
all.
Okay. I wanted you to say that. Thank you.
That's the hard part.
That
The hard
is
part, and insurance is becoming a nightmare for us all nowadays.
for all of us. Yes, it is.
The number of letters that I've gotten to justify services in the last week alone I've never experienced anything like it. They're just trying to penny pinch at every
Cut back and cut back.
cut back and cut back, and it's unfortunate.
Doug, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You really were wonderful. You really opened up
Pleasure.
all
Thank
our
you for
eyes.
inviting me.
And you
Sure,
are a
my
gift
pleasure.
and the vehicle that every parent should have in their notebook, their phone, to have your phone number because you never know when you're going to need you. I recommend you to so many families and myself. I call you when I need you, when I have a question, and you don't BS it. You tell me where to go, what to do. And that's a gift. And NAMI West LA will appreciate you forever. And we're going to use you as our
Whatever you need.
and you can tell us what you think, and
You
then you
guys are
help
great.
us
You guys are
communicate.
great. Everyone that's ever used you guys is great. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Aaron, so much. And thank
Thank
you,
you, Aaron.
Sophia and Garrett and everyone, Elizabeth, everyone on tonight. This will go so far and it will be here on YouTube for many, many, many more to see. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Janice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
you,
Thank you,
Erin.
team. Absolutely. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
again, Doug.
Thank you
Okay,
so
bye.
much. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.